Greetings and welcome to the channel. My name is Dr. Narcissistic Transformational Coach here at Inner Mileage, where we help folks understand their hidden traumas which lead to limiting self-beliefs, how to overcome them, and live resonant, heavenly lives right here, right now. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the narcissistic condition, really going into a full expose on the nature, the diagnosis, and the spiritual implications of narcissistic personality disorder. And we're going to start with understanding who a narcissist is, the different types, what the DSM says about it, what the research says about it, spiritual implications, and so forth. So a narcissist is not just someone with an inflated sense of self-importance. They actually embody a severe personality disorder rooted in entitlement, manipulation, emotional detachment, and a deep-seated fear of inadequacy. The narcissist operates from a core false self, a grandiose mask designed to conceal an inner void of self-worth. And their identity is built on lies, self-aggrandizement, and external validation, making them incapable of genuine relationships. See? Now, while the term narcissist is thrown around frequently, it's important to distinguish between healthy narcissism, such as self-confidence, ambition, and resilience, and pathological narcissism, which is destructive, exploitative, and often very abusive. Now, to go into this, I'm going to share some types of narcissists based on research. And some of these may be familiar to you, some may not be. And realize that a pathological narcissist is a narcissist regardless. So there's a grandiose narcissist, which is a type that's very dominant, arrogant, extroverted, and openly seeks admiration and displays superiority, the grandiose narcissist. Then the second is the vulnerable or covert narcissist, the type that appears to be sensitive and self-deprecating, but secretly harbors resentment, envy, and entitlement, right? That's the covert or vulnerable narcissist. Then there's the malignant narcissist, which is the most dangerous type that combines both psychopathy and lacks remorse and enjoys cruelty, malignant. Then the communal narcissists, they appear charitable and morally superior, but they thrive on praise for their selflessness, the communal narcissist. There are also spiritual narcissists who bypass and use the spiritual world as a way to justify their superiority. Then the somatic narcissist, the type that's very obsessed with physical appearance, attractiveness, and sexuality. And then ultimately the cerebral narcissist, one that uses intelligence and knowledge to assert superiority over others. Now, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, specifically the 5th edition, which is the manual used by the American Psychological Association to provide a framework for understanding personality disorders and mental disorders, classifies narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, as a cluster B personality disorder. In other words, it's a category associated with dramatic, erratic, and emotionally unstable behaviors. And the 9 criteria for MPD or narcissistic personality disorder diagnosis requires a person to meet at least 5 of the following. 1 is grandiosity, an exaggerated sense of self-importance, expecting recognition without achievements. 2, fantasies of power and success, believing that they are destined for greatness, right? No basis for it. 3, a belief in their uniqueness, thinks they are special and can only associate with the elite. Craving admiration, 4, requires constant praise and external validation. Then 5, a deep sense of entitlement, expects special treatment and compliance from others. Then 6, exploitation of others, using people for personal gain, exploiting people. 7, a lack of empathy, incapable of genuine emotional connection. 8, envy, either envies others or assumes others envy them. And then 9, arrogance, displays condescending and prideful or haughty behavior. So these are the 9 elements, and if a person meets 5 of the following: grandiosity, fantasies of power and success, belief in their uniqueness, craving admiration, sense of entitlement, exploitation of others, lack of empathy, envy, and then arrogance. They are a narcissist. Now, how is a narcissist formally diagnosed? So the clinical diagnosis has to happen with a licensed mental health professional. And the diagnosis happens through the following: psychological interviews, in other words, structured interviews about behavior patterns. Then there's behavioral observations, right? Assessing interpersonal interactions. And then, where useful, there are personality tests like a narcissistic personality inventory. However, the challenge with this is narcissists avoid diagnosis because they rarely believe they have a problem. They manipulate therapists by presenting a false self. This is very important. They manipulate therapists by presenting a false self, and they only typically would seek therapy if they do after major life disruptions such as job loss or disruptions, divorce, etc. This is what they do. So the question becomes, how can empaths document and identify a narcissist even without formal diagnosis, right? Because you live with them, you've spent decades with them, and what you begin to do as an empath is observe patterns, document behaviors, and trust your intuition. And some of the tactics for this include: 1, recognizing the cycle of abuse. So narcissists generally follow this template of love bombing, which is intense charm, idealization, and excessive compliments, which leads to the next step, which is devaluation. They suddenly shift to critique, passive aggression, and gaslighting, and sometimes come back to love bombing. This is where the trauma bond gets created. Then, after devaluation, there's a discard phase where there's abrupt emotional detachment and even abandonment. And ultimately, if they want you back, they would hoover, or the term is hoovering, which are attempts to lure you back with fake remorse. Then the second strategy is to document behavioral patterns. Keep a journal of your interactions, the contradictions, broken promises, and the gaslighting tactics used by the narcissist. Record instances of manipulation and emotional abuse, very important, and note recurring emotional highs and lows in the relationship, right? And then 3, you may want to spot their energy signature, which is understand their draining presence. You feel exhausted, confused, or anxious after the interactions with them. Then there's gaslighting. You doubt your own perceptions of reality. And then control tactics that they use, which is to isolate you from others and belittle your emotions. So we understand this now, and it's important to go deep into what causes NPD, or narcissistic personality disorder. Well, there are 2 options that I'll go through. And the first is childhood trauma and attachment wounds, which is a result of either overindulgence or extreme neglect, which is excessive praise or emotional deprivation; parentification, being forced to act like an adult as a child; and also having narcissistic parents who model narcissistic traits all contribute to this. Then there are neurological and genetic factors such as brain abnormalities, i.e. reduced matter in anterior insula impacting empathy; a hyperactive amygdala, which is the fear center, heightened threat perception, which leads to emotional volatility; and genetics or epigenetics. Some studies suggest narcissistic traits are inherited epigenetically or otherwise. So how is MPD treated, and what are the limitations? Well, conventional treatments may include things like cognitive-based therapy, which helps manage reactions but does not cure MPD. Then there's dialectical behavioral therapy as another example, which focuses on emotional regulation. And then schema therapy, which addresses the deep-seated patterns from childhood. But the limitations of therapy to this is because narcissists resist therapy because they are able to manipulate the therapist or leave therapy early. And medication only treats symptoms. There's no cure for MPD, only symptom management. So this is where you realize that MPD is more than a psychological condition. It is also, or largely, spiritual. It's a deep spiritual affliction, a disorder of the soul. Because narcissists feed on energy and function like psychic parasites. And in esoteric traditions, they are seen as possessed by dark forces. Particularly in Christian theology, for example, the Jezebel spirit represents manipulation, deceit, control, and seduction, all traits of the narcissist. And this spirit operates through narcissists, making them almost inhuman in their cruelty. Other spiritual traditions echo this. For example, in Buddhism and even in Hinduism, narcissists mirror Mara or Asuras, which are demons who thirst for power. Then in the Kabbalah, narcissists belong to the Qliphoth, which is the tree of dark energies detached from divine light. And in Hermeticism, they are locked in lower frequencies, cut off from spiritual ascension. So how does one overcome a narcissist spiritually? Well, it's not an easy thing to do, but there are three things I'll focus on here. One is to elevate your consciousness, which means healing your trauma wounds. If not, the narcissist will exploit them. The second is to engage in shadow work, which is to confront your subconscious fears and patterns. So as you elevate your consciousness, the next thing is to work on spiritual protection, using mantras, prayers, and spiritual shielding to protect your energy, as well as cord-cutting rituals to sever energetic ties with narcissists. And ultimately, you want to fulfill your divine purpose because narcissists target empaths to suppress your spiritual awakening. And by fully stepping into your purpose, you neutralize their control. So you realize that a narcissist's greatest fear is exposure, being unmasked and losing control. They thrive on fear. Psychology offers insight, but only deep spiritual wisdom grants us the power to fully overcome them. If this resonates, type transform in the comment section or send me a message at nana@innermileage.com or put comments here that let us know this resonates. Recognize that narcissists cannot heal because they refuse the truth, but as empaths, we can rise, transform, and transcend. Keep shining, keep ascending, and realize there's no one like you.